Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. So another build that I want to put on the bench for the World War II group build being run by Ian, aka UK Scale Modeller. This is the Airfix vintage kit, as you can see, Russian T34 176 scale. Now I wouldn't have built this when I was younger because I was only building British, Commonwealth, American and German armour. I wasn't really much into the Russian stuff, so I don't recall building this at all. So this is a new kit for me to put together from Airfix, obviously, though it's quite an old one that they've reboxed, which is really cool. I'll show you the sprues so you can see that I haven't started. So there it is in all its unmade glory. I'm really looking forward to this. As I say, it's not a kit that I've built before, so it'll be great to add to my vintage Airfix collection of armoured vehicles. So the next time you see this, it should at least be put together. So like I said, I would be back when this T34 was constructed. It is practically there, although you can see a gaping hole in the side of it and the tracks aren't on at the moment, but there are just one or two things I wanted to bring to your attention about this kit. The first one is you get two choices of turret, and the one that you see on the tank at present is the T34-85, which is my favourite version of the T34. It looks quite good, it's gone together quite nice, not any issues at all. But Airfix do provide you with the turret for a T34-76, and I shall show you that now. So this is the turret for the T34-76, and did you see that gap that was between the gun mantlet and the turret top? That is really bad. So you'd have to put some evergreen or something to try and cover that, I think. So for this model I will be doing the 85. But apart from that, the detail's quite nice. The turret on the 85, if I just get it again, bring it a bit closer. So the gun was bent both horizontally and vertically, so that was a bit of a challenge to bend that back, but it worked in the end. Now I've made a bit of a mistake on the rear of the T34. I've put the exhaust pointing upwards because I'm so used to doing that with German tanks that I just thought they pointed upwards, and of course they don't, they pointed downwards. And as you can see, I've made an attempt to see if I could get them off, or at least one of them off, and I'm frightened I'm going to actually break the thing, so I've decided to have to leave it as it is. The hole here is for the fuel tank. Now this is one that I haven't cleaned up, and as you can see, that's pretty atrocious. This is one I have cleaned and put some filler in there, but what I have managed to do is lose the banding detail on the barrels, so I'll have to see if I can recreate that, or just, you know, it is what it is, and that just sits on there. One thing I did do with this build that I haven't done before, and I'd like to show you this on another build. This is the personnel carrier. You see where the sprue joins the kit? Well, on the T34, if you can imagine, this part here is like recessed, so there's a step, and when I cut the sprue off, there was a blob of plastic in there. So what I've done in the past is I've run a blade down that to try and get rid of that blob of plastic, but invariably what tends to happen is that you ruin this bottom part anyway, it's very difficult to get that to get smooth. And then of course you have an issue with a joint butting up to each other. So what I did on the T34 build was, where that blob was, I just cut that section out completely, and that meant that the blob that would obstruct the two parts joining together was no longer there. Because there's quite a long length of kit on the underside, it didn't really matter that it wasn't there, and I'll show you that now. So I think it was this point here, and so I was able to basically, if you like, clean that by removing that section, which meant that the side parts butted up to the lower hull of the tank very easily. That was a very quick way of cleaning up. Now yes, there is a bit of a gap and you can still fill that if you want, but at the end of the day that's on the underside of the vehicle, so you're not going to see. But you perfectionists out there may decide to fill it anyway. But I thought that was a quick way of resolving that issue, where you've got a blob of plastic that will stop two parts butting up to each other. Obviously if this was in the upper section, you may think twice about doing it, but then again, if a quick swipe with a bit of filler will just fill it in, then it may be something I will try even on upper sections. The tracks on this kit are the rubber band type, and from experience I know that these can put a lot of tension on the idler sprocket and the drive sprocket and the idler wheel. And what can happen is that when you put them on, you pull these two wheels inwards and they bend, which of course is something you don't want. So what I tend to do these days is I'll let this dry for at least 24 hours, make sure that glue is properly set. And what I will attempt to do is stretch these a bit just by pulling them ever so gently along their length, just to get rid of some of that tension, and hopefully that will do the trick. We will see at a later date. So that's the construction part practically done. The next time you see this, she will be painted and completed, so I'll be back in a bit. And here is the finished build. The rubber band tracks behaved themselves and managed to get them over the drive sprocket and idler wheel, no problem. Then I sprayed all the kit matte black and then painted it. Now I think I may have chosen the wrong colour. I used Vallejo's Russian uniform green, and I think they do a Russian green, and so the uniform green I think is a bit too light. I was hoping that the sludge wash would darken it down a bit, and I think it has, but I'm not sure I quite like the result, but it is what it is. Of course the exhaust being upside down is screaming at me every time I look at this build, but there's nothing I can do about that now. The T34 76 turret, I just put that in the bin. I decided not to faff around with it, but as I say, it's not a bad kit to put together. I am wondering whether this would be a nice cheap option for wargamers at £6 per tank, bearing in mind that you get decals with it, so it's something to bear in mind. After I did the paint, I obviously did the gloss varnish, then put the decals on, then sealed them in with gloss varnish, and then once that was done I put the sludge wash over, and then I tried to highlight some of the edges and whatever, and tried to do a bit of rusting. The tracks are finished in I think it's AK's rusted track or something, which is a paint. It's acrylic paint, and I quite like that. I quite like the finish that gives. So I'll be using that again. But yeah, so I finished this build before the Nelson, and as I said at the start of the video, this was started after the Nelson, but that's a much more complicated build. Still waiting for the primer, and then you got the paint job on top of that, so I needed something to be getting on with. The only thing I suffer from sometimes is I get sidetracked doing smaller, easier builds, and then I don't get the main build completed. But I hope that isn't the case. Anyway guys, thanks ever so much for watching. I hope that all your builds are going well. Have a cracking weekend, and I'll catch up with you soon.